So you start out on your Betfair trading journey. You want to find an edge because the edge is what everybody is looking for. And there are many ways of finding an edge, and edges occur in many different places. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Please like and comment on the video below. That will allow me to produce better quality videos and more of them in the future. So yeah, where do you find an edge? Well, over many years I found loads of edges. The interesting thing about them is you do tend to find them occurring in a number of different places. So the first thing you should have is a fairly open mind as to where you expect these to occur, because somebody asked me the other day, where can you find an edge? And I just replied to them my entire set of the psychology of trading videos, because in fact I think that you can describe a lot of edges in that manner. People do things that really don't make sense, but then the thing is they just endlessly repeat them, which makes no sense either. So you find loads of little biases that occur all over the market in one form or another. And I've been amazed over the years just how many of them there are. If you lump them all together in one giant pot and put them together, it sort of says, oh yeah, the market's efficient. But if you start deconstructing it and pulling out little bits of information, then you suddenly begin to realize that perhaps the market isn't quite as efficient as you would make, as people would make you believe. So you tend to find that there are little gaps all over the place. And sometimes when you're looking at a trading strategy and you're trying to find an edge, it's better to focus on one particular niche, doing one particular thing, than it is to try and do them all. I'm incredibly rare. I'm on the far right of the bell curve, in that I can turn my hands to many different things. But that's very rare for somebody to be able to do. And also I've watched so many of these down markets that I turn up at a market, I look at it and go, yep, recognise that. But that's a learned skill. I've had to go through the process of trading hundreds of thousands of markets, and then I can recognise straight away. Now the interesting thing is I can actually describe the variations that you see within all of the markets, and I can describe why that occurs and how and on what scale, because I've measured it all. So not only can I look at something, but I can describe it beautifully in as much detail as you like. But the problem is that detail is really deep. So if I start explaining it and breaking it down, you start at the top level here, and then there's another layer and another layer and another layer, and it goes whoosh. It takes hours to talk about even just one particular market and how it's likely to trade. But the great thing is you don't need to do that, because say you focused on one particular niche within a market. So you sort of say, right, I'm only going to trade this type of race, this is what I'm looking for, and I'm going to do it over this time period and in this way. And then you focus religiously on that. You could have 20 or 30 races, but maybe only one or two of those will turn out to be the trades that you want. But nonetheless, if you're really focused on those, you will find them. And it's the same in a football match. You're looking for a high scoring football match, a low scoring football match, all of these sort of things. If you focus in one particular area, on one particular niche, you will become very good at it. And you don't have to trade hundreds of thousands of markets. You can just focus on that particular pigeonholed niche and you'll find your edge in there. So I know somebody left a comment on a YouTube video the other day saying, tried this, didn't work. And I just sort of, sometimes you really have to stop yourself from replying in a certain way. But I know somebody that actually uses that strategy to make a living. Now, he focuses on it relentlessly and studies everything in such great depth and targets very specific matches, and then goes in and does that strategy on those specific matches to the best of his ability. But of course, if you apply it generally across the entire market, it's not going to work. You have to focus on one particular niche. And my ability to read the markets isn't some sort of general, I can describe it well, but it isn't some sort of just general trading rule. It's because I started in exactly the same place. When I first started on racing, knew nothing about it. I looked at a maiden and I thought it was a Disney princess. I had no idea it was a horse that hadn't won a race before. I didn't know. But you know, suddenly when I began to spot the different race names, I was thinking, well, that's interesting. Well, you know, this is interesting. That's the case. And it was a process of cutting out losses for me. So I adopted one generic, bog standard trading style, applied it on all of the markets, and then it was like, well, I keep losing on this race, and I keep losing here, and there, and there. And it's like, put these into one little pot over here and figure out why I keep losing on these particular races. And then the other ones would go on the other side, and it's like, well, I'm good at those races, and I'm terrible at those. So let's stick with these ones. I'll increase my expectancy by focusing on those ones and abandoning the ones that I just don't seem to do well on. And then I could start solving the problem on that. So I focused on the stuff that worked, religiously implemented that, looked for those patterns, those opportunities, and then stuck to it. And then eventually solved the problem with these ones over here that I didn't initially solve. And then suddenly that becomes over onto this pile. But there are other ones that you may leave in there that you can work on separately from there. So my ability to look at the market, read it, understand what it's doing, is a culmination of finding all of those little edges, but I can now put them all together into one ginormous sort of look at the market. I can look at each one of those markets. I know how they're likely to trade. I can look at a race now, and in 2-3 hours time I can tell you how much it's going to trade, how it's likely to move, when the money's going to arrive, and what it will do to the pricing. But only when I'm on that race will I confirm if that's true. But I'm looking for it right from a couple of hours out, and then when I arrive at the market I know what I'm looking for, and I can jump on an opportunity when I see it. But you can do the same. Football, tennis, any of those individual sports will allow you to do that. But what I'm talking about here really is, if you have a generic strategy that you're deploying generically in the market, you're going to get generic results, and those generic results are random. You'll end up at break even. Now, in fact, you'll make a slight loss because you have to pay commission on your winning trades. But if you apply random process to a market, you're just going to end up with random results. So the best way to trade the market actually is randomly. If you're starting out completely afresh, brand new, and you never have anything and you don't have an edge, trade a market completely random. And you're thinking, what are you recommending here? Because you just told me I'm not going to make any money. But you will learn. You won't make any money, but you will learn. And then the next thing that you do is you look at all of the results and what you were doing, and you'll immediately see that some of them worked, some of them didn't, and then you have to start looking at why those ones didn't work. But the easy way to fully understand what's going on with the market is then run the same strategy again the following week, but vary it slightly. Just insert a little modification in what you're doing. Maybe you start earlier, later. You do a certain thing. You ask for more money, you ask for less. You vary the pattern of what you were doing within the market. And then you look at you vary it ever so slightly. You get your results from the prior week, you get the results from this week, and then you put the two together, and where you see that they don't overlap, that contains information. That tells you what that variation did in the market, and then you can begin to understand and unpick why that occurred. And then the following week, vary it again. And eventually what you find is that you end up with a very nice little strategy, because you keep varying it and learning more information about what you're doing and why it works. So when I returned to greyhounds this year for the first time in 7 years, I sort of guessed roughly where I wanted to be in the market and what I wanted to do. But I'm now on version 37, I think, or variation 37 of where I started. So I keep adjusting it in one way, and it's like, well, that didn't work, so I'll adjust it this way. And it's like, well, that worked better, so I'll adjust it this way. Well, that didn't work, so I'll adjust it this way. And gradually you sort of swing from one side to the other, you vary it multiple times, you compare all of the individual results that you get, and then that points you down the path of understanding the market a lot better. But I'd probably say, that's the quantitative process in terms of trying to understand how you're going to make money and where you're going to find an edge, is you have to keep introducing those variations. I mean, if you look at it, it's a sort of Charles Darwin-ish type. It's Darwinism. It's, we're evolving the strategy, and every time we evolve the strategy, it either dies or it succeeds, and then we evolve it further. So, that was my approach to it, was to take it down that particular path. But also, don't forget that an edge can come from the core strategy, the implementation of it, or the way the market behaves. So I've often found that there are multiple ways of looking for an edge within the market, and some of it is to do with the market's psychology and your psychology as well. People repeatedly make the same mistakes again and again and again and again. How many times have you said, I'm definitely not ever going to go in and play, and then you do? Or it's like, well, it's only a fiver, if I just double my stakes. All of these things occur consistently and frequently within the market. And also, the big steamer that comes down to here and then suddenly stops and bounces in the other direction. You wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, and then you jump in, and then it's too late. These are all things to do with the way that people think and the way that gets transferred into the market. So your edge could come from a whole number of different ways, from the individual strategy, the execution of the strategy, the timing perhaps, but also from a little bit of psychology. And obviously the ultimate one is to incorporate all of them together into one big thing, which is what I try and do all of the time. But yeah, there are many ways to find an edge in the market. It's important that you do try and find an edge, because if you just do things at random, you'll end up with random results. But the great thing is, doing things at random doesn't really lose you that much money either. So it's important that you understand that trading at random, and this is where you can use automation on BetAngel. It's great if you want to develop a trading strategy and execute it perfectly and leave it to its own means. You'll get absolutely perfect results with a little bit of automation. And with things like the servants, you can now apply that to your manual trading as well. So you can say, this is what I'm going to do, this is what's going to happen, I just need to nominate the runner. And you can get the benefit of perfect execution. It eliminates all of those little biases and errors, some of which occur up here. So yeah, loads of ways of doing it. We've sort of designed BetAngel to allow you to execute as best as you possibly can, but also to develop and vary strategies easily as well. So not only is it a great trading tool, it'll be a great way of developing any strategy that you've got, because even if you're doing something completely different, you can always get BetAngel to run in the background, gather data, gather information, or give you feedback on what's going on within the market. And we've done that specifically so that it allows you to create an edge, and that's why the product can be varied so much, can be very highly customized. And you've also got all of these little great tools like the servants and like automation and Excel and all of these other things will allow you to actively monitor and develop strategies alongside however you're trading. So yeah, make sure you use them all. But if you want to find an edge, available in a number of different places, but the most key and important thing that you can do is vary a core strategy, and when you vary that core strategy and it produces different results and you get a variation on those results, that variation contains information. And that's exactly what you're looking for.